Well, a very good afternoon, everyone. My name is Catherine Bruche, and welcome today to this beautiful space as we celebrate the love and the life of your dear friend Jack. Today's ceremony has been created with so much love and care by Jack's good friends, and with Jack in mind every step of the way. Jack is dressed in his favourite jeans and shirt and his very favourite porpoise spit t-shirt. Being an environmental activist, the coffin is woven sustainable banana leaf, and the stunning flowers are reflective of the way Jack used to light up a room with his smile. We have a photographer, Matthew, joining us today who'll be unobtrusively capturing the essence of the day. Jack's prolific Facebook posts created connections all over the world, as you all know. So we welcome those who are joining us today via live streaming. And a very big welcome to you all in the room too. I believe some of you have travelled from great distances to be here today. You may have also noticed on your order of service booklet at the bottom of the link is a scholarship has been created in honour of Jack, a PhD scholarship at the Kirby Institute. So you're most welcome to either follow that link if you'd like to make a donation to change somebody's life immensely, or there's also a link on the Facebook page, and a special page has been created in Jack's honour for that. Now, you also may have noticed on entering, and I can see some of you already have, but we have a table of sparkle. So the photo of Jack on that table is was taken at Mardi Gras. So if you'd like to later on, please feel free to get into the groove and decorate your faces or your whole body with a bit of glitter, if it takes your fancy. But after the ceremony, what we're going to do is actually we're all going to walk downstairs out into the car park if you are able, and we're going to create a beautiful tunnel of love, and then the pallbearing will take place and we'll all be ready for the hearse to drive through as we can clap and cheer your beautiful friend on his way. And then please feel free to come back up where there'll be lots of drinks and canapes served. Thank you. But maybe just at this time, let us pause for a moment to bring our love of Jack into this beautiful space. I did not know Jack, unfortunately, because he sounded like such an amazing man. But through talking with his friends, I understand that he was so kind and giving. So let us take this little brief moment to invite in his love. Thank you, everybody. Sometimes people come into our lives, and before we realise, they have made an indelible mark on our hearts and minds, just simply by being who they are. They radiate a natural charm, welcoming us with warmth and wisdom, sincerity and generosity, compassion and fun, engaging us with genuine interest. Jack was definitely one of those people, loved by so many and held in the highest regard by everyone who knew him. As we honour and celebrate his life today, it is an opportunity to connect with our own faith and beliefs, and to source comfort from Mother Nature, the waves on the shore, or the great universe. So all religion is welcomed here today. Jack's death has come as a huge shock despite his long illness, which has devastated his community. Intellectually, we know when someone we love dies, it is the end of a physical life. And most of the time we can accept it as a normal part of the human journey. Yet when it becomes personal, when you lose someone like Jack, it demands your heart to break open in sadness and grief. Grief is very painful and it demands space. There are often feelings of shock, loneliness, guilt, and even despair. There is no philosophy or religion ever taught that could prevent this wholly natural reaction of the human heart. In the midst of this brokenheartedness, may you draw on the grace of love, love that endures beyond death. They say grief is love with nowhere to go. So in time, may you navigate these emotions to find peace and healing. May you affirm all that was good and true and generous and beautiful in Jack's life. Jack was a free spirit who could light up a room with his cheeky smile and that classic Southern Carolina accent. He found the beauty in everyday things. He had a great capacity to live endlessly and a rare gift to really listen to people. He acted upon that love, not just in his local community, but far, far-reaching. Jack was loved and admired for who he was, and he knew you all loved him too. Well, the sacred land we stand on here in Bondi was traditionally owned and cared for by the Cadigal people of the Eora Nation. And we give our respects to the people of this land and waterways. This place carries the history, spirit, and memory of community, both past and present. Here they have performed age-old ceremonies of storytelling, music, dance, celebrations, initiations, and renewals. And this community, everyone here today, you are now the custodians of Jack's history. You are all the keepers of the stories and the caretakers of his spirit. You carry the memories and the emotions, the laughter and the love that is the legacy of Jack's life. Jack made a special contribution to this world, and if love alone could have kept him here with us, it certainly would have. Jack taught people to see the extraordinary in the ordinary. His positive outlook on life was admirable. His hashtag moment of gratitude reached far beyond mid-words on a Facebook post. He was kind and gentle-natured and wouldn't intentionally hurt anyone. There wasn't a bad word anyone could say against him. It would take Jack a long time to see a person's flaws with that big open heart, yet sometimes to a fault. His writing skills were developed at a young age, and he was the master of articulation and loved exploring and probing issues and interests. His list of career hats includes being a TV presenter, writing for a magazine, working on a fishing boat, yes, even a porn star. However, he would never disclose the movies that he was in. Apparently for real, yeah. It was pretty funny, Aidan. He ran an art gallery, and on arriving here in Australia in his mid-30s, it wasn't long before he found work at the Kirby Institute, eventually landing the role researcher of sexual health. If there was any sexual position to explore, Jack knew about it. And that southern charm worked on many a friend. Another hat that Jack wore proudly was being ordained minister for the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster. And you too can receive a Pastafarian Minister gold foiled seal certificate for just $25 US. Free shipping is even available, so just jump onto that legit website. Well, Jack had many loves, especially athletes, hookups, sex. But his other passions did include music, movies, and books. He loved art, good food, and of course was very passionate about animals. And in fact, a donation is being made to Monica's Doggy Rescue, where he found his beloved Copa. And he was particularly fond of gin. So today, everyone, you gather to say your goodbyes and to reflect on what Jack has meant to each of you. He certainly had his own particular style, individuality, and uniqueness. And he touched so many lives, enriching and influencing their experience. Above all, we acknowledge and celebrate the full, interesting and wonderful life of a good and decent person who lived his life to the fullest in his own fabulous way. Well, now, friends, we come to the heart and soul of the ceremony, where we will hear all about Jack's life. And it's our great pleasure to invite Mo Hamoud to share a eulogy Jack's Uncle Bill wrote for his memorial recently in the US. Thank you, Mo. No, it's for the stream.
Remembering Jack by Uncle Bill. Jack always cringed at platitudes. At times like these, we are most prone to them. He died too soon, certainly he did. I know how you must feel, sincere and sympathetic, but never true. Words cannot express this kind of loss. Maybe not, but we must try, so I will try. Jack was the little brother I never had. He was born just 10 years after I was, and he is closer to me in age than I am to his mother, my dear sister Jackie. I was his frequent babysitter, and we became close. I mastered my diapering skills on him. When my neighbours, both only children, had to deal with their baby's first poo, I handled it. When they asked how I learnt that, I said my nephew Jack. 2 years later, his sister Gina came along, and we referred to that dynamic duo as Jack and Gina, one word. Even then, they could and did charm everyone. Their home was warm and full of good-natured horseplay, with Johnny and Jackie playing along, while Jack and Gina developed a teasing but close relationship. After I went off to college and then Philadelphia, I continued to track Jack as he developed into a young man. Several themes emerged in his life: an affection for animals and children, an interest in science, art and literature, a taste for adventure, and a natural instinct to protect others from harm. During the summer and holidays, we shared his interest in Ray Bradbury, Douglas Adams and Omni magazine. His enthusiasm and talent for words and imaginative expression were boundless. Jack instinctively loved children and animals. He showed creepy-crawly animals to his Aunt Susan's special ed class. He loved to play with his nephews, Jordan and Brad, and exhibited an impish grin. He managed pet and fish stores, gleefully pairing pets with owners, and while instituting an ethical practice. Long before stores stopped selling puppies, he made sure his did not. At one point, he had 22 pets swarming his apartment, from iguanas to parrots to ferrets to fish to dogs. Once, one of his friends unwisely rescued an injured and endangered turtle from the beach. Jack managed to save the turtle and shield his friend from prosecution during an uncomfortable night of negotiation with rangers. Leave it to Jack to charm his way out of 2 felonies. 2 great tragedies helped shape his life. When he was in his mid-20s, his father was gunned down by robbers. Though Jack loved his family, he never felt accepted in Wilson due to his artistic temperament and sexual orientation. He moved farther away to Charlotte, Atlanta, and finally Sydney, feeling and feeling the pain of the loss. Love took him to Australia, but he soon fell in love with the land, its people, and he stayed here. In 2014, the plane full of researchers flying to a conference in Australia was shot down in the Ukraine. Jack and all the other hosts were devastated, and Jack dedicated himself anew to his work, his colleagues, and his friends in Sydney. He was a man of paradoxes. His quick wit would entertain or cut like a knife. He was generous with praise and scorn. He dropped out of college, of course not telling any of his family, but ended up as a research associate at the university's medical institute. He would fib in an instant to spare someone's feeling, or hide something from them if he thought they would not like knowing it. But he could not bear a lie intended to hurt. He could be deadly serious about some issues, but snarky about others. He could speak eloquently about a pig's innards, but once thought pimentos grew in olives. Despite the troubles in his life, he lit up every room he entered with a smile, good humour, and fun-loving nature. He loved to dance enthusiastically and endlessly. He laughed, lived, and loved large. Above all, he was a man of purpose. One thread that unified his life was wanting to protect others, since so many people close to him had been taken by senseless violence, disease and mayhem. In college, as throughout his life, he loved to have a good time, but he started a service called Pause, standing for the Parkwood Aiding Wasted Students, to make sure drunken students would have a safe ride home. He dedicated his professional life to research to ensure that people could avoid and manage deadly diseases. His Facebook page celebrated small acts of kindness. From reading those small pages, I learned how much he practiced them on others. Jack subscribed to no religious creed, but he was one of the most deeply spiritual people I ever knew. He deeply appreciated nature and the mysteries of the universe. Huge spiders roamed his apartment because he knew their place in the overall scheme of life. Jack created the hashtag JMOG to denote Jack's moments of gratitude, which might be for a gorgeous sunset, or a gesture of kindness, or a beautiful memory. He asked people to dance for his ageing and beloved dog Cooper, and his family and friends facing crisis. Finally, Jack loved and drew from his family. His father's free spirit and joy, his mother's loyalty and affection, and his sister's service and resolve. He loved his grandmothers and grandfathers and reminisced about them, and his aunts and uncles, cousins and nephews. I will end with a platitude even though it might upset Jack. He was half the world away, but he will always remain in our hearts. From Uncle Bill. Before I finish, I'd like to take a quick moment to say goodbye to Jack. Jack, you are truly the most unique person I have ever met. You are one in a lifetime, and it pains me to say goodbye. You've always had my back. You've always been there when I needed you. You did this right up until the very end, even when you were at your worst. You had this amazing ability to always see the collateral beauty in every situation. Even during these sad times, I can just imagine that cheeky grin of yours saying it took your death for Garrett, one of his dear close friends, to show any form of human emotion. The global response and outpours of support to your family, your friends and Copa speaks volumes of your humanity and loving character. You will be missed. I will miss you every day. Thank you.
Jack would be very happy that Aidan at least was having a great dance. Well, family and friends, let us now welcome Garrett Prestage, Jack's boss, mentor and friend. Thank you, Garrett.
Well, first off, if Jack were here, what Mo said is probably exactly what Jack would have said. So, as you've heard, Jack lived in various parts of the US, mainly in the south, before he came to Australia. He came here entirely on the basis of love and trust. He'd met an Australian man and fell in love with him. I don't want to name him out of respect for Jack. It says much about Jack that his only real condition for moving to Australia was that he could bring his dog, Savoy. He visited with her every day for 6 weeks while she was in quarantine. Jack quickly fell in love with his new home. He loved most things about Australia: the blue skies, the weird animals, the laid-back lifestyle, the ability to take pleasure in things without being judged. I first met Jack in 2002, a couple of years after he'd moved here. He was a participant in one of our studies, and he asked if he could help out in some way. I started him out as an interviewer, and he was good at it. Let's face it, Jack knew how to get people to tell him their secrets, so he was the perfect interviewer. But being Jack, that wasn't enough for him. Within a couple of months, he'd convinced me to let him work as one of the people managing the interviews, and it wasn't long before he was running that part of the study. He quickly learnt what we were doing and why, and of course, had an opinion on all of it. Usually his opinions were helpful, but he sure had a knack of getting up the nose of some people. Jack was pushy and vocal, but he was also smart and funny. Some people loved those things about him, and some just got offended. Most people experienced both, sometimes within moments. No matter, because you could always rely on Jack to say what no one else was brave enough to say, including, maybe even especially, to me. And he did it with good humour, unless someone said something hurtful: racism, sexism, homophobia, and just plain bad manners. He called it out no matter what, sometimes even at risk to his own safety. Probably especially when it was bad manners. He took pride in his southern good manners, sometimes annoyingly. He'd never start eating in a restaurant until everyone was served, which also meant no one else could either. Not without looking like a jerk anyway. He knew what he was doing, good manners, more like an opportunity to get on everyone's nerves, I reckon. But hey, it was Jack and it was worth it. When that first study came to an end, it was probably no surprise to anyone that Jack stayed around, and I found ways to keep him employed. It wasn't just that he was helpful, and it sure wasn't that he understood the research process, although he, at least, was confident he did, and he gradually did learn. No, the truth is that Jack was passionate about what we were doing, and he loved helping people. He didn't actually need to work. He hadn't been working when he asked if he could help, and his intention was to volunteer. I said no to that. He either worked and got paid or not at all. His agreement with his partner had been that his partner would take care of earning the money, and Jack would create their loving home. So, before Jack started, he needed to get agreement from his partner to this modification to what they'd planned. The point I'm trying to make is that Jack stuck around because he wanted to contribute something. He didn't need his job back then, and what he contributed wasn't an innate gift for research. No, it was an innate gift for bringing people together, for understanding what it is to be human, and for bringing them out of themselves. He could provide insight and perspective that data alone can never do, and humour. I wonder how many of you have noticed Jack's work email signature, where it says, "No chickens were harmed." There's a story to that, and it's just one example of how he took something peculiar and subverted it so he could use it, both for its humour and as a teaching opportunity. When we asked in our interviews about a huge range of sexual behaviours, we also asked if there was something else they wanted to add. In one interview, someone told about doing something that involved frozen chicken. Let's not get into the details. So Jack often cited that interview. He used it humorously, but mostly it was his opportunity to get people to ask questions, and that gave him the chance to talk about the enormous variety and weirdness of sexuality. He used it to make weirdness less scary and to make all of us feel an affinity with someone's weirdness. If you laughed about it, Jack joined in, but if you laughed at what was being described, he quickly disabused you of the notion that he had anything but fondness for the guy with the frozen chicken. I did eventually have to tell him to stop adding frozen chicken to the list of sexual behaviours on every draft questionnaire for new studies. Too often in meetings, when the project team looked through the questions, it took too long for me to explain the background and Jack's wicked humour. Not that frozen chicken ever appeared on an actual questionnaire, fortunately. Jack also loved Mardi Gras, even when he couldn't really participate. For him, Mardi Gras encapsulated all that he loved about being gay and all that he loved about Australia. And not just the boys, although he definitely enjoyed his share of them. It was the free-spirited joyousness of it that he loved, and the glitter. Each year, without exception, on our last work day before the parade, Jack would look at me earnestly before he'd leave for the day, and he'd say, "Thank you for Mardi Gras," and hug me. Inevitably, as it's doing now, that would bring a tear to my eye. He knew just how to get to me. This will be the first year for a very long time that Jack won't say that to me, but I'll still hear it. A few years of working for me as my assistant meant that Jack and I grew very close. We saw things very similarly. It was around this time that Jack's dog Savoy died. He loved that dog, but she had become really frail with age. Jack soon said that he wanted another dog, but his partner was a bit reluctant just yet. Sometime later, Trevor and I got Chester, our dog, and Jack was, well, let's just say that he was an enthusiastic supporter and dog sitter. And he used Chester to lobby for his own new dog as well, which is when Copa came into Jack's life. He loved Copa with a passion. He'd do anything to protect her. As I said, Jack came here for his partner. He'd given up everything to move to Australia with him. Unfortunately, that relationship eventually broke down and they split up. Jack was devastated, but he managed to pull his life back together. He had Copa and he loved Sydney and Australia. He loved his job and he had plenty of people around him who loved him. He was certainly not about to leave. He eventually got past it. He moved into a flat in Waterloo, worked hard and extended his friendships and dove into Facebook in a way that no one could ignore. He's probably the most effective user of Facebook I've ever witnessed, and either the most engaging or the most annoying. Probably both. Jack often used to bring Copa in to work with him. She'd follow him everywhere or just sit quietly at his feet. Sometimes I took Chester as well, and they'd sit quietly together. I remember when we first came on campus temporarily, we were told they really didn't endorse dogs in the building, so Jack would sneak Copa in under a jacket. Eventually we came onto campus permanently in our current building and we were told it was definitely not permitted to bring dogs into the building. Jack was deeply unhappy about it. I can't say it sat well with me either, but he swallowed it up eventually. He did find one particular upside to coming onto campus though. He'd come back from lunch and he'd say to me, "I'm so going to jail," with a broad grin on his face. And I'd remind him that university students are all over 18. Yeah, but I'm still going to jail. Over the last few years, though, Jack suffered an ever-increasing series of health problems. Maybe his relationship breakdown had something to do with it, who knows. Regardless, Jack fought through each problem, but with each blow his overall health deteriorated and at the same time, Copa had a series of health issues as well. Tragically, early last year, Jack's health deteriorated to the point where he simply couldn't work anymore. So he wanted to stay, he so wanted to stay in his job, but it became impossible. He knew it, but he hated it as well. But he truly appreciated how much the Kirby protected him to the extent that was possible. It was an awful time for him, and I was suddenly having to act as supervisor instead of friend. I hated that. Over the past few months, as his health went up and down, I don't think any of us thought that this was possible. Did he? I really don't think he did either. It seemed to me that he was more focused on short-term goals of figuring out what was happening to him physically, and then he could plan his future. But here we are. There's nothing good about this. It shouldn't have happened, and it isn't fair. Such a bright spark of joy in all our lives, Jack should have been able to live a long and happy life, to have experienced as much joy as he gave to others. And I'm not alone in thinking that, I know. The outpouring of love and respect for Jack from everywhere and everyone is overwhelming. People who loved him and people who were constantly frustrated and annoyed by him. They all feel the same. They can't believe it, and they wanted more time with Jack in their lives. I know I'll always miss him. Let's all remember that Jack lived his life with passion. He was fiercely opinionated about so many things, especially protecting animals and calling out hypocrisy. And he took so much joy in beauty and pleasure that he couldn't help but demand that everyone around him should see what he saw as well. His daily moment of gratitude was just a small reminder from Jack that we should all treasure every moment of our beautiful planet and do what we can to take care of it, if not for ourselves, then surely for the animals that he so loved. Just before I turn over to Bridget, I'd just like to let you know that the Kirby page has been set up for donations in Jack's honour. You can easily find it on the Kirby website, as it's simply called Jack. And that's so kirby.unsw.edu.au/Jack. Thank you.
It is now our great pleasure to introduce Bridget Shah, a close friend and work colleague of Jack's. Bridget is now taking care of Copa too, so she's in safe hands. She's also worked tirelessly over the past week to give Jack the best farewell ever. Please welcome Bridget. Thank you, everyone.
I'd like to start by thanking everyone for coming today to honour Jack, and to thank all those who are watching via the live feed. Jack would be saying, "This is too much," or "Don't go to so much effort on my count." Well, as I said to him often enough over the last year, just shut up and let people do what they have to do. It's our way of showing we care. Jack had a wide range of friends from all walks of life, and I've tried to represent as many parts of his life as I could through the people speaking today. I've received many messages from people on Facebook saying that they'd never met Jack, but it felt like they knew him because of the way he was always willing to engage with them and share his life with them. And he shared his life so openly and honestly. You were his Facebook family, and he treasured your input into his life, especially as his health deteriorated, and of course during Copa's illness. Your dancing got him through some tough times. Family was important to Jack. He spoke to me often about his family in the States and shared the good and the not so good stories of his life there. He never stopped loving his family back home. And I want particularly his mother, Jacqueline, to know that. North Carolina was never going to be big enough for Jack. But it was always in his heart, in his manners, and you were always in his thoughts. The song We Are Family is a gay anthem because so many people in our community need to turn to their peers and friends for understanding and acceptance. Our families may be sporting clubs or social clubs, our workmates, or the families of our lovers or partners. Thus, Jack surrounded himself with many families, and you can see the love here today and on Facebook. I've tried in my drafts of this tribute to articulate how Jack and I came to be family, but it happened so slowly over many years that it wasn't really that interesting. Suffice it to say that we shared a love of animals, we spent a lot of time together, and for two people so opposite, we somehow developed a supporting, loving relationship. Jack became a part of my immediate family. He came on holidays with us and celebrated family milestones. If I was invited to something, Jack was also expected to be there. And of course, his love for my son Aidan is well documented on Facebook. Jack was my family. He was the person I turned to when things went wrong, and the person I called first when things went right. I find myself these last 2 weeks reaching for my phone to tell him something and feeling lost knowing he's not there. I know that all of you will be feeling the same way. Please be kind to yourselves and support each other. Jack is still with us, in our hearts, in his writing on Facebook, in your memories. And every time you see an orchid bloom, a huntsman climb from under the couch, a beautiful sunset, or a tight ass on a hot guy, Jack will be there.
Jack's renowned intelligence and quick wit was entertaining to say the least. And then along came Carla. Introducing you, Carla, from the Jack and Carla Show, and Jack's dear friend Neil to share their tributes with us. Thank you.
When Bridget asked if I would like to speak today for Jack, my first instinct was to say no. I wasn't sure if I could get through any kind of speech, really. It's just too much. But then Jack loved too much, so why not? I met Jack online through our mutual friend Charlie. I found him so entertaining. He was definitely someone I needed in my life. I would wager the amount of people who've met and loved Jack through some kind of internet group is innumerable. And so over time, we became the Jack and Carla Show. I'll come back to this a little bit later, but first I'd like to talk about who he was to me. Jack was quick-witted, wicked, savage. I had to Google so many words he used, I started to wonder if I even spoke English at all. Except the swears, I knew those. Jack was strong and stubborn, and he loved to prove arse-hats and bigots wrong. He lived through so many experiences that would kill a lesser person, and he found a way to flip them all off afterwards. He was my kind of pervert, and I almost need to send Yoga Boy a sympathy card. I hope he left me the opera glasses. I really wish I could be a fly on the wall when people come across the porn stash and the items in the drawers by the desk and the pantry. He was kind and loving and generous to a fault. He held my hand and he listened to all my secrets, and he told me I was going to be okay. I am exceedingly angry that he has been taken from my life. Returning to the Jack and Carla Show, and because we probably all need a laugh, Yoga Boy. Anyone who follows Jack on Facebook will know about the neighbour across the street and his exhibitionist ways. We will never know his name. There were reasonably frequent updates regarding Yoga Boy's visitors and state of undress. More privately, I often received a random message live at the scene with no warning. I would like to share some of these now for comic relief. 1. Tidy whities, no shame. Sunbaking on the roof. He's going to die of melanoma. He's not Jewish, I can tell that from here. 2. The rain started and I had to rush out and bring in his laundry. 2 questions come to mind. 1, what is he washing? I've never seen him wear anything but underwear, if that. 2, I forget. 3, either naked Yoga Boy is playing Wii or something very strange is going on up there. 4, black boxer briefs and a neckerchief, and a muscle-bound 19-year-old to keep him company. God, I hope he's at least that old, because he's wearing gym shorts and nothing else, and it's only 16 degrees here. 5, I couldn't sleep, so I've been up early this morning. He just walked out on his balcony naked to hang out clothes. I'm not in good condition today, and it nearly killed me. My response to this message was, I am so glad that even in your darkest times you see a naked guy and you think of your dear friend. They go on, but that's where I'd like to stop for a minute, because that's Jack really, isn't it? Always thinking of his friends. Everyone here today was chosen by Jack to be part of his family. We are the family he chose because we loved him for exactly who he is, and that's our privilege. While I was preparing to write this tribute, I went back through all my Facebook messages to Jack. It took some time. I chanced upon some around the time his friend Simon died. Jack was upset he wasn't able to stay at Simon's memorial service, and he said to me, I'm angry with no place to put it. Death always makes me feel this way. And I gave Jack some advice that I would like to share with you today, because frankly I can't believe it came from me. You are allowed to be overwhelmed by the loss of your friend. Do me a favour tonight, pour a drink and toast your friend's life. Try to write down 5 great memories that you have together. I read somewhere that people never cry at funerals for the person who is gone. They cry for what that loss means to them. So please try and make a positive memory around this tragedy. So that's what I'm asking you all to do. Write them down. Say them out loud so you don't forget. Never forget this amazing human who packed so much living into his years they had to take him early so he could leave some for the rest of us. We love you, Jack.
Well done. I'm not going to be quite that eloquent, I'm afraid. It doesn't matter if you knew Jack from...
Come on, mate.
Come on. Doesn't matter if you knew Jack from America, if you've known Jack from his years living in Australia. Fuck. Sorry. Yeah. No, come on.
Put your big girl pants on. Let's do this.
Oh, I hate this, Jack. It doesn't know... sorry. Everyone here has a story about how they came into contact with Jack. He had a unique way of communicating in a way that was raw and honest. Jesus. Vulnerable at times, opinionated and very confronting at others, but always very Jack. Some people don't understand social media, but I, for one, am very grateful for his Facebook posts. To this day, there are thousands of posts, his thoughts, his day-to-day life experiences, his love for Copa, all beautifully articulated, and still there for us to all read. His honesty was refreshing, always considered, sometimes witty, sometimes thought-provoking, often cheeky, sometimes cutting, but always very Jack. I first met Jack not long after he moved to Sydney on a dance floor in King's Cross, dancing with my arms in the air. We smiled, and within seconds there was this cute American guy licking my armpit. I thought this was very unique, but I know I'm really just one of hundreds who share a similar story. Over the years, our friendship developed into one of love and respect. He was never one to shy away from expressing his views or very passionately defending his opinion, but it was always very respectful. Well, mostly. The only argument I ever had with Jack, ironically, was about fundraising. A few years back, 4, I think, when Jack was going to dye his hair green to help raise money for the wombats native to Australia. I questioned him why he didn't share his fundraising page on Facebook. I said I would love to support him, but wondered how the hell I was supposed to do this unless he shared the fundraising link. I mean, he posted everything else on bloody Facebook, so I was really confused. He also got quite passionate with this. Okay, I offended the crap out of him. And he said that he didn't want to ask people for money, that he wasn't that type of guy. I tried to explain that if he was going to do something that big, then why the hell wouldn't you want to raise some serious cash for charity? We went through a few months of not talking after that. But that all changed when I started raising money for my own cause. Jack donated to every crazy thing we organised and came to our events. One of these events I arranged was a skydive, and I was in awe when Jack said he was in. He, like me, hated heights, so to do this was massive, but he believed in what we were trying to do, signed up, and then one Sunday in March we jumped out of a perfectly good plane flying at 15,000 feet, and I'm very proud to say that he shared his fundraising page on Facebook a lot and raised a shitload of money. Please know, like me, though, he really was shitting himself the entire way. Carla actually flew down to hold his hand. It was beautiful. But his determination to help was truly a beautiful thing. Yeah. I know, sorry. When we got to the end, well, almost to the end of our fundraising goal, he called me up and asked one simple question: how much more do you need to raise? And I told him that we were only $2,000 away from reaching our $300,000 goal, not realizing that within 2 minutes I would get an email to say I just received an anonymous donation. That was Jack. Sadly, we're now raising money in his name, and I know he would hate the idea of asking people, so I'll do it for him. It's the one thing I'm good at. Anyway, so farewell, Mr. Jack. You kind-hearted, beautiful, gin-soaked lush. I hope you really are dancing your ass off up there, or down there where it's warmer, and the armpits may be more appealing.
Well, there really are so many fabulous and humorous memories of Jack. His intelligence and wit, his prolific presence on Facebook, his kindness and generosity, his sexual prowess, but above all, his beloved Copa and his close friends were his family and were his priority. Jack unintentionally and humbly made a difference to the lives of so many people. Well, the world was all the better for having you in it, Jack, and you will be dearly missed, but never ever forgotten. Your legacy of kindness, love, and humility will live on in our hearts and minds all over the world. Thank you. Well, now, everyone, two of Jack's friends and work colleagues, Brian and Anna, have spent many hours creating this wonderful visual tribute. You may also like to take this moment to reflect on your own memories of Jack too. Thank you. Brian and Anna. That was truly beautiful. What a tribute. And just before we close the ceremony, we thought it might be a lovely idea to, the girls thought it would be a lovely idea to read Jack's original #JMOG. So we'd like to now invite Jack's dear friend Louisa to share it with us.
I don't know why I have to do it after we just had all the tearjerker photographs, but thank you, Brian and Anna. It's terrific. I'm incredibly privileged to read a Jack moment of gratitude posting that a lot of you will have already read, and somebody really thoughtfully reposted it recently. So it will be familiar to some of you. And I suppose what I just wanted to add to this was that it really was his. He created that Jack moment of gratitude, and it was about Jack. It was for everybody, but it was really about Jack. So almost exactly 5 years ago, on Australia Day 2014, Jack posted the following JMOG to his Facebook page. And it, like everything else that's been said today, it just says so much about him. On a beautiful sunny November day in 1999, I stepped off the airplane, that's an AIR plane, in Sydney for the very first time, and I said, I don't think I've ever seen that colour blue before. And in that he, C-O-L-O-U-R. And then in brackets he said, actually I said colour with the C-O-L-O-R back then, but I digress. The sky was amazing that day, perfect little white puffy clouds scattered about, glorious sunshine and the cleanest air I'd breathed in years. I walked through the city and spent my first day falling in love with her. The things I remember about those first days and weeks in Sydney still thrill me 14 years later. The eel pond in the Botanic Gardens, walking through Hyde Park at night under the towering and ancient eucalypts and fig trees strung through with fairy lights. The walk along the harbour side that gradually reveals the Opera House. Sitting at the end of what he called Southhead Road, I think he probably meant New Southhead Road, and looking back up the harbour towards the city. At night, looking so bright and quiet and still from that distance. Luna Park on a sunny afternoon, the zoo when it's cooler in late summer. Hanging onto the bow rail of the Manly Ferry on a windy day. How friendly and open everyone was compared to the busy, introspective city I'd just left. Frangipani and jacaranda everywhere in bloom, cockatoos, fairy wrens and lorikeets on your balcony or windowsill. I was even thrilled to see ibis close up. To me, they were still an exotic bird back then, something I'd never expected to see in person. Boys, talk about seeing things with new eyes. And he digresses here and says, if pigeons are rats with wings, then ibis get the raccoon with wings title. Having previously lived in Atlanta, I was fortunate enough to experience my second Olympics as a local in the city where it was being held, and Sydney really put on her best dress that year. Not only did she tart herself up, but the feeling of community, joy, and genuine welcome we showed the world was Sydney at its finest, at her finest. I still feel it from her, not just not 24 hours a day like we did that year, but I still feel it. I fell so hard in love with this city, and over the next couple of years, this whole country. When I took my citizenship oath in 2003, I was worried I'd be nervous, but I wasn't. It was a moment of pride and of gratitude. I didn't get born into this culture, I adopted it. I saw what it had to offer, and I chose it intentionally. I'm very glad I did. It isn't perfect, but perfect isn't possible. It isn't always representative of me, but I'm always proud to represent it. I've worked to help make Australia a better place because it lets me. It asks me to. It asks us all to do that. So you won't hear me bagging out Australia today. You won't hear me complain or whinge or mock. I recognise the issues that many people want to highlight today, and I don't mind them doing so. Quite the opposite. I want them to do so. They're working to make Australia a better place in their own way, because it asks them to and allows them that voice. But my feelings on this day every year are this. I'm grateful for the opportunity to join this country, to be one of its people, and to keep working to help make it better. I love Australia, and so far Australia has loved me back. Happy Australia Day. That's my moment of gratitude. JMOG.
Thank you, Louisa. Well, that pretty much concludes the ceremony for today. So before we stand to say our farewell to Jack, I just wanted to reiterate that it would be lovely, I think, that we all went downstairs and formed a lovely tunnel of love for Jack, and Jack will then be pallbeared into the hearse, and so we can send him a big wave and clap him off. So then obviously everybody, please do come back upstairs for drinks and food, okay? And if you aren't physically able to go downstairs, that's fine, stay where you are. Okay, so would everybody please like to stand now? To a loving son, brother, nephew, cousin, Uncle Duck, and dear friend, Jack. Your unfailing integrity, generosity, and gentleness will be deeply missed. We give thanks for your life, Jack. A life that we truly remember with deep gratitude and love. You have completed your physical life in this world as we know it. And as we say farewell to you, let us find comfort and trust that a human life is full of meaning and purpose, even in death. Your precious life had true meaning, Jack, and we thank you for the strong values that emanated from your generous, kind heart. We are so grateful for the time that we've been so privileged to share with you. And you will be held lovingly in our hearts forever. #JMOG. Tenderly, with reverence, and with all our love, we farewell the physical body of Jack Bradley Jr. We give thanks for his life, and may we let go of any regrets or guilt we may carry. May we focus on the gratitude for the time that we've been so privileged to share with him. We would cherish the memories of his opinions, the sound of his laughter, and his bright, effervescent spirit. We cherish his friendship, and most of all, we cherish his love.